Hey everybody, welcome to today's webinar. We're talking about how to use Gearset for implementation partners, so those of us in the ecosystem that are doing consultancy and get into client organizations to build out their Salesforce practice and how you deliver world-class Salesforce release management in that scenario. We're lucky enough today to partner with people that know a lot more about us, a lot more about this in the form of Vertiba, and we'll go into introductions in a few seconds. So as always in these webinars, if we just go through we got myself, Kevin, the CEO of Gearset. Feel free to ask questions throughout all of this, either using the Q&A thing in GoToWebinar, or just hit me up on Twitter at Kev from Ireland. I've got one of my colleagues with me as well.
So this is Jason. I look after the product and customer success side of things at Gearset. And again, you've got my contact details for LinkedIn or Twitter or the link up there as well.
We have much more important people with us today that are going to talk us through what Gearset's like for implementation partners. So I'll hand over now.
Good morning, everyone. Chad Kelly. I'm the Director of Technical Architecture with Vertiba. So feel free to hit me up on Twitter or LinkedIn to continue the conversation. So I am one of the few certified technical architects in the Colorado area, which is where Vertiba is headquartered. And joining me here today is Jeremy.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Chad. My name is Jeremy Case. I'm a solutions architect with Vertiba. Again, feel free to contact me if you have any questions. This is the world that I live in on a pretty regular basis, and dealing with deployment to some of our larger, more complex clients. And so I might be able to offer some insights to you on how to best utilize Gearset for your deployments.
So just a little bit about Vertiba. We are an active element of Publicis.sapient. So our parent companies, they bring advertising and digital agency capabilities to our suite of services. Vertiba is solely focused on the Salesforce platform. So we do change management, App Cloud, Sales Cloud, Communities, Service Cloud, Marketing Automation, and have about 80 plus consultants that are certified, and including some MVPs as well, and then myself, who's a board certified TA. So we've been a gold partner since 2014. We're actually the #1 AppExchange reviewed consultancy, and we have about 900 projects under our belt. So we use a methodology called Value Path to accelerate value with our customers, and it's specifically designed around Agile and Salesforce and our internal tools to capture requirements, manage tasks, drive projects forward. And we focus on the public sector, financial services, and healthcare industries. So just a couple of logos that we've had experience with. I've mentioned we have 900 plus projects, so quite a few additional customers that are not on this list, but all of our customers have really been successful with the Salesforce platform, and we are committed to 100% customer satisfaction with all of our engagements. So just an agenda for today. We're going to really walk through at a high level challenges that we face as a implementation partner and leveraging it really just around release management and deploying changes, being agile to accommodate business requests and get those into the form of delivered functionality in a production environment. And how we go about solving those challenges in a world-class way, leveraging Gearset as a fantastic tool for enabling a lot of a lot of that. So at a high level, challenges that we face when we are engaging customers, when we're in the trenches at projects, is evaluating the state of client orgs. A lot of times they'll have an existing footprint, existing code and configuration that we'll need to have a point of view on, so that we can effectively make recommendations and do development. So they may tell us their environments are in sync, and we, most times, most often than not, they are not in synchronized. So it is a challenge to understand who's doing what has been deployed, what is active development. And a lot of times we'll do parallel development with our clients. And then even internally, if you are not familiar with Salesforce's metadata API, which a lot of your customers are not, it is complex. Deployments are, they can be challenging, and they can be a bit of a pain. So it hasn't been uncommon for that to fall on the shoulders of a very small group of resources that are very technically advanced, that can work through a complex deployment. And what that leads to is a very non-collaborative deployment, where you throw it over the wall on one or two resources, and they have to go and figure out, okay, what's changed, what components are candidates for release based on client and project team developers making updates. And then Jeremy's going to talk a little bit about the collaboration aspect.
Yeah, thanks, Chad. As I said before, this is kind of the world that I live in on a pretty regular basis. I tend to work on some of our more challenging and complex projects. And one of the biggest challenges that I face on a regular basis is working together with client teams who always have work in flight. They're most often they have some initiative or some changes that they're making somewhere in their organization. And having people making changes in multiple sandboxes or directly in production, and not having any idea of what was changed, when it was changed, why it was changed, makes for a very challenging project, because you'll be developing to deliver specific functionality, and an admin somewhere could change a validation rule or update a profile somewhere in production, and that can change the expected behavior of your development. It can break what you're building. It could allow access that shouldn't be allowed. And knowing what happened when and by whom and for what purpose is always been a big challenge in that world. And that also obviously leads to overriding changes. So you'll have somebody building something in the sandbox somewhere and deliver it up to production. And, you may have another team that's developing in another sandbox and overwrite their changes. I'm sure these are not challenges that are not faced on virtually every project. One of the other things that is a big challenge is destructive changes. If you need to delete a field or delete a validation rule, that's not a big problem. But if you need to delete an Apex class because you have upgraded that functionality somewhere, your standard admin can't do that. It generally takes somebody that's pretty proficient with how everything is laid out, with what the components are that are in place there. The other thing that we find once we get into actually doing deployments is finding all of the dependencies. So when we deploy a field, what else is involved in that? We probably have a profile. We may have some, and then when we deploy that profile, we may have some access to some visual force pages. This just leads to that complex metadata API that Chad was just talking about, and being able to identify what all of those dependencies are in order for this great functionality that you've developed in order for that to be available once you move into a production environment. So those are just some of the major changes or challenges that we face, especially as our projects get bigger, or we have parallel work streams where multiple people are working on multiple projects at the same time. Inside of larger organizations, that's almost always the case.
Thanks, Jeremy. So another aspect that's obviously something that we strive for is leaving a legacy with our customers. So that means, from a release management perspective, building a reliable and repeatable release process, which can be challenging depending on the maturity of the customer. Sometimes they may be more mature than others. Sometimes they're looking for us to give them a strategy. Sometimes they have an existing strategy and they want us to play nicely with their existing policies and processes. So in terms of leaving a legacy, we always want to be able to integrate with client teams and provide that thought leadership around Salesforce release management, but make sure that we work with what they have in place as well. And in terms of quality releases, you could have the best development, you could have the best quality assurance testing, you could have the best consulting services driving synergy with your clients, but if you botch the release, when game time comes and you need to get something into production and you miss a dependency, or you miss the window that you're given to get that functionality into production, then you've really hurt yourself from a confidence perspective from that customer. So to be able to demonstrate value from cradle to grave on a project, you really have to nail deployments as well. So that's what we strive for, so that we can build that confidence with customers that we can execute successfully.
So as Chad and Jeremy have just said there, they've outlined a very clear way some of the challenges which face implementation partners when they're approaching clients to deliver great projects. And at the start we talked about Gearset. So who is Gearset and why are we teaming up with Vertiba here to talk about release management? So Gearset is a tool that's designed to make release management on the Salesforce platform ingeniously simple. So it was born out of decades of experience of release management across databases and different platforms. And the idea is to make deployment and release management simple, repeatable, and effective. The idea is to have a tool which is all the power of the metadata API, and for those of you who are familiar with it, with a tool like Ant, but then encapsulating that in a declarative user interface-based tool, which gives you the mix of powerful functionality, but then lowering that technical barrier to entry to make effective release management available to a wider range of people. So the tool is also designed to be flexible in terms of the licensing and the use, to be especially useful for consultants and implementation partners. So because there's no footprint when you install it, and the fact that you can attach as many different orgs as you like on an account, it's very easy to take it between different engagements. So what we're going to move on to in a minute is Jeremy and Chad are then going to start looking at how they are starting to leverage Gearset to help them address some of these challenges in release management which they've previously mentioned.
All right, so let's start with discovery. Great looks different for every client, as I kind of alluded to. Some have, and we span the gamut with customers we work with. Some are SMBs, some are very large, established enterprise customers. So we'll have varying budgets, varying team size, varying talent that they have on the team. So we've found that the tool gives us an extra layer of flexibility around understanding what's changing in the environment. We'll talk about org monitoring as a feature. It also gives us rapid insight into client orgs, so we can quickly compare two different orgs, two sandboxes in production, and the tool will highlight the differences between those orgs, which from a quality control perspective, it really gives you a great idea of highlighting changes and highlighting relevant work that's happening that you may or may not be aware of. Also, another huge advantage architecturally is Gearset has no footprint, so it doesn't require you to have any kind of managed package that's installed within your client's orgs. It's all web-based, and it interacts with these orgs through the metadata API through integration, which is great when you're dealing with as many Salesforce orgs as we are. So I'll kind of quickly give you a demo on how to do an org comparison. So I've actually just logged into the Gearset user interface at app.gearset.com, and what I can do here is I can just compare two demo orgs that I have here. It gives you the flexibility to select which metadata components, what metadata types you want to compare. So I've actually already built a set of sets of metadata types that I use. So for this one, I'm just going to use code and objects to highlight the code and objects, but you could go in and you could add, you know, if you're doing email templates or custom objects or reports or roles, you could select what you want in scope for the comparison. So if the demo gods are nice to me, this should kind of quickly do a comparison. So what it's doing is it's logging into my source and target org. It's highlighting the differences between those two orgs, and then it should give me a comparison that I can use to create a deployment package. So as this is running again, the thing that I just love about this tool is the org comparisons as a means of quality control. And as soon as I saw this product from these guys at Gearset, they just nailed it in terms of giving you a web-based tool to allow you to do these org comparisons. And although we do document change as we're doing it, there's always iterative components to a deployment. So this kind of gives me an idea. You can see all of these components have changed. If I were to drill into it, it gives you the details of the change. So this is just an API version difference, but because it actually gives you the screen comparison, it's even more detailed insight as you drill down into them. So I'm just going to look for a specific field called account source, which I've updated in my source environment. I just added a pick list value, and now I want to deploy that to my target org. So another nice thing about Gearset 2 is it'll do a dependency check. So if you're familiar with the metadata API, you may know when you execute a deployment, if you're missing a dependency, it could take a long time to process, and eventually Salesforce will give you that feedback, but it's a very expensive call. It takes a lot of time for Salesforce to try to execute your deployment and give you that feedback. Gearset actually pulls some of that dependency checking forward. So for example, if you were to try to deploy a object that has field history tracking enabled and that is not enabled in the target org, it will warn you before executing that deployment. So it gives you that feedback faster, and you can ultimately iterate a lot faster. So I'm going to go ahead and deploy my change, and then depending on how many components you have, it'll be very quick or take some time. And now I have a successful deployment, pushing that change to my production or target org. Okay. Jeremy, do you want to talk a little bit about the collaboration aspect?
Yeah, sure. Chad kind of hit on the monitoring and we be sitting on the org comparison. One of the things that I wanted to talk about was the org monitoring. So within Gearset, we can turn on a feature that will monitor changes to an org, and so every day it will look at what the org looked like the previous day and what it looks like today, and then highlight each change that's been made to as many different orgs as you want, and send it to you in an email or whatever, so that whenever a change is made, you can tell who made it and when they made it, and if there's something that's unexpected, you know who to go to find out what the reason for that was. That kind of thing was really, really difficult to do prior to using Gearset, and it really helps to monitor or to maintain integrity of your of each of the orgs that you're working with. And because of that, it really helps to integrate with client teams who are working on parallel work, sometimes in the same sandbox, sometimes in different sandboxes. And so if you highlight changes that look like they may overwrite one another from two different sandboxes, or if you're monitoring production and you see a change made in production, that's generally not something that we expect anybody to be doing, to make a change directly in production when we have projects in flight. So that gives us the ability to see what that change was, and it might have been a legitimate change. There may have been something that was wrong that needed to be fixed immediately, and that's okay. We can pull those things back up. We can pull those changes back upstream, so that our development and our UAT environments are in sync, so that whenever we go to deploy, we already are taking into account whatever change was made in production. So then, again, some of the other things that Chad has shown you, and then the things we get into in a minute, is we can automate some of this functionality through some continuous integration functionality that's starting that we're starting to see Gearset really do a good job of, and then we can see what's happened. So each of our deployments is kept. We can track we can go back and look at each of the deployments that has been done and see what components were deployed with that. And not only that, what the contents of those components was, and so it really helps us push changes effectively from one instance to another.
Thanks, Jeremy. So I'll just kind of quickly give you some of the show you some of the features he was referring to. So if I were to go to monitor orgs, you can see here I've got a smattering of clients that we've got this set up for. So what we can do here is we can actually choose the organization that we want to monitor. Even this is our internal instance of Salesforce that we leverage. Again, select a metadata type set of components that I want to monitor, and then I can have email results sent to me or texted to me or my project team or my customer, even integrate with Chatter if you don't want to see a lot of those notifications. And it'll give you visibility on how many deployments are being run, what's changing, if they've changed from the last time the job was run. And then if I'm interested in drilling into that, I can actually go and drill down into the details of actually what objects changed. So no matter how close you are to a project or how far you are from a project, if you want this visibility, it's a very nice tool to give you that. And then you also have the ability to collaborate on deployments. So if I were to select, a set of Apex classes and objects and Visualforce pages that I want to push into production, push into the next sandbox, I can start building that package, and then I can do what's called a draft deployment. So I can give it a name, and what's cool about this is now I can copy this, or they can log into Gearset and browse to it. I can share this with the client team. I can share this with the project team, other team members, and say, hey, did I get everything? So again, it's taking that deployment burden that used to be very siloed into your guy that does deployments, and it makes it collaborative. It makes improves the release quality because everyone on the team owns the deployment, and they have buy-in, and they have visibility to what's changing. And then from a test class perspective, test class in the Salesforce ecosystem is always our favorite topic. We have this monitoring capability. So as a project manager, as a technical architect, you want to know that your developers are keeping pace with the 75% code coverage requirement. So I can set up orgs to, again, be monitored to make sure that they have the code coverage up to snuff. And we all know that changes over time too, as new code's added, as validation rules are added, that could prevent previous test class coverage from being run successfully. So you can actually set a threshold, and you say, okay, I want to be notified anytime the code coverage falls below 73%, because we know we don't need more emails in our inbox. And then it has chatter integration as well if you want to have that more collaborative in the org itself. Another great aspect about some of the features that I just went through, from a technical director perspective, where I sit in the organization, I'm responsible for technical excellence across all of our projects and provide leadership to our technical resources. So I don't necessarily have time to be on the ground at all these projects. And some projects may be more configuration based, where they have a business analyst, or some may be major projects with a project manager and multiple developers, or maybe it's a TA and a developer. But no matter how large or small the project is, if the project teams are leveraging Gearset, I actually have visibility into those the progress that they're making. So I can track their test coverage. I have visibility at a technical director level, even though I'm not engaged in the day-to-day for those projects, which is just a fantastic tool for me to be able to stay engaged and get involved if necessary. And then in terms of leaving a legacy, again, just having the tool to be able to be flexible with customers and adapt to their release management needs, to improve our agility getting code from dev to test to production in a way that's quality and fast manner, that really is at the core of what we do, in addition to development and quality assurance and consulting services. So it's a very nice complement to our consulting tool set. And it also provides some nice artifacts as well. So if I want to provide some release notes, I have the ability to go in and do an export of a comparison history or an export of the deployment itself. So I can go look at my deployment history and export the components that actually changed, because that's input that customers care about. They want to know what you did and when you did it. And another nice feature is the ability to do a back out. So I can actually go into the deployment history and back out a given change, which, if you're familiar with Salesforce, they don't have any native back out capabilities. They have one version of your code and configuration, and that's it. So the fact that it keeps a backup of your previous, wait for this to load here. I have a lot of deployments here, so that's probably why it's thinking. But a lot of customers, even if they don't necessarily want to back out a deployment, they have a nice warm and fuzzy to know that capability is there. It also integrates with, looks like it's running again here. It also integrates with source control too. The Gearset guys are also going to talk to you a little bit about some continuous integration functionality that they're rolling out, which is very cool. But all in all, again, it really is a nice tool set that helps us improve the quality of our projects. So just at a high level, I kind of go through the a sample release management process involving Gearset. I mentioned we do have traceability to changes that our developers make, and we put that into what we call a deployment document, and that is, it really just highlights all of the necessary steps that need to be involved in a deployment. So the components that have changed, the manual steps, the packages that you need to install in the orgs if you're using AppExchange partners. So we try to get everything in this deployment doc, and then we kind of use that as the basis for creating that deployment package. But as I mentioned, things are oftentimes missed. So if you have a client team that is making changes that you're not aware of, or maybe a developer forgot to include a component in their notes, we can highlight those dependencies and those components that may have been missed with the comparisons. So what we'll often do is we'll have a mock deploy from dev to staging. We'll iterate through that using the deployment doc and the comparisons to highlight change, and we'll kind of incorporate that back into our deployment doc, with the goal being you just have one and done deployment from staging into production, because you already iterated through some of those missing dependencies when you did your step 2 mock deployment. So just to go back, the comparison history that's been made, again, the rollback feature, if I want to export the artifact, there's PDFs that highlight the release, the deployment itself. There's also CSVs you can export with the full inventory of deployment candidates. Okay.
Thanks, Chad. So I'm sure everyone on the webinar is used to hearing vendors say how great their tool is, but it is really, really refreshing to see of the company to see Vertiba using it so effectively. And we've got a few quotes from other users as well that really help to quantify the improvements that teams are seeing. So you heard from Chad and Jeremy just how much time it's saving them and how easy it's making life for them engaging with their clients and delivering a great experience, delivering that customer success that's got them the #1 rating for implementation partners on the AppExchange. We see very common stories from lots of different people. Julie at the Zaxxas sort of talks about how refreshing Sandbox with the clips and a manual diff just would take days and days, and they try to do this at the start of every sprint or as often as they could, make sure their environments were in sync. Now they use Gearset, it just takes them an hour or two, and that allows people to do, more useful work. These things have taken 8 hours to do deployments. No one wants to spend that time. That's not really helping the customer. And we hear that a lot, so it's really nice to hear the Vertiba guys having a great experience too. To think of a worked example, it's not uncommon for us to hear from customers. We try to check in and see how they're getting on with the product. And so we think of an average team size, maybe 5 devs on a project. And, we've used the word developers there, but really, as Chad and Jeremy said, Gearset allows you to lower that technical barrier to entry. So you've also got business analysts and admins and, end users of Salesforce that are able to now understand the differences. So before you might have had 5 people in the team spending, 20 plus hours a week migrating, tracking changes, trying to debug into field tests, trying to understand what production looks like, or having a conception of what production looks like, and then you come to a change and you overwrite something that was made. Think about six sprints a year. We think that with Gearset, you reduce that down to 3 hours per sprint. So easily in the first year you save about 60 working days. And what we don't just promise is that time saving, although it does deliver that. We want to deliver a fundamentally better way to do deployments as well. So we try to get that deployment success rate up through things like the dependency analysis and all the problem analysis we do to work around, let's call them quirks of the Salesforce platform. We want the deployments to work first time every time. We're not quite there yet, but we track and track and track and improve and improve and improve. We also try to improve collaboration of our users, so allowing them to work effectively with their teams or within their team through draft deployments first and foremost, to be able to collaboratively build up that package so you can work together instead of working against each other. In collaboration through our automation, so you're alerted when your tests start to get close to that failure zone, that 75% zone, and also alerting when your production changes are made, because as we all know, the power of the Salesforce platform comes in the ability of end users to make those changes and not have to go through rigorous step cycles. That's why we all love the platform. So the production org monitoring allows you to keep that capability and just bring those changes back into your dev flow so that you can keep everybody happy. Your dev teams are happy, your end users are happy, and you generally have happier users and developers on the platform. All that comes together to just have faster releases, and that's kind of the mission of what we're up to here. And it's great to hear Vertiba have had such a great experience. As we look forward to Dreamforce, we are going to be out there same as we were last year. We launched last year, and it was fantastic to hear from so many devs and admins in one place. We're out again this year. We're going to be in the dev zone, so come and find us there. We're going to be demoing end-to-end ALM with continuous integration. So we think that you find the right release management strategy for your level of sophistication and what works best for you, just to see that customer success and see happiness from your clients and your engagements. But you can use Gearset in a full end-to-end flow, end-to-end ALM flow with continuous integration, source control, bringing all of that together so it's all automated. We're also going to show you how to get towards SOX compliance and do things like have certain users be able to build packages, but only a release manager can actually deploy those changes to production. So the release manager can authenticate the actual production org and then give just certain users read-only access so they can do comparisons and see how their dev environment differs from production, but never be able to modify or deploy to production. So that's all coming at the Dreamforce. Find it in the dev zone. If you're not going to be there, check out gearset.com/df16, and we'll be sure to say what we're up to there. So that's the end of our webinar today. Wanted to thank you all for attending. Thank the guys at Vertiba for sharing their experiences with us, and really open to any questions. You can use the GoToWebinar chat window there, where you should be able to ask some questions, and we'll be able to answer them for you. More resources available at vertiba.com if you want to find out more about that #1 implementation partner, or gearset.com/DS16. Do you use, so first question in, hi, do you use in your orgs managed package? Is that, I guess that question's, I'll answer it on behalf of Gearset first, and then the Vertiba guys can answer it. We'll take both interpretations. So Gearset itself sits outside of Salesforce, and that's, it's a conscious decision to have that low footprint. So when you make a connection between Gearset and a Salesforce org, we don't install anything. It just uses the same metadata API that the Eclipse.ide uses, or the Force.com migration tool. So nothing to install, but Gearset then does have full support for managed packages. So you can see the differences, you can see differences in profiles or custom field permissions that you might have on a managed package that you've installed. I'll just hand over to Chad and Jeremy if you guys have any experience using managed packages in your engagements.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I'm not sure if the question is more, I think we touched on, Gearset doesn't have a managed package as a footprint. It really just lives outside, like Jason is reiterating. But yeah, we'll absolutely leverage managed packages, AppExchange products, and we've leveraged Gearset to promote those components as well. Or you can also do the one-click install in your production and other sandbox environments as well as a means to deploy those.
Next question in. When refreshing sandboxes, is there a way to move the data also? Not at the minute. That's a conscious decision we've made with Gearset. We don't want to access your data. Your data is, an incredibly valuable asset for your organization. We think there's great products out there that do that phenomenally well, like DataLoader, Jitterbit, and a bunch of other companies. So what we have focused on exclusively is that migration of metadata, the migration of the configuration of your org, and we want to totally nail that and get that to be at the absolute, the best, the market leader in that, and leave data loading for some other people. That's it. The one thing that we might do is the data that isn't really data, that's sort of the metadata, so the let's say list of countries, or the stuff that you might now use custom metadata type for, where previously you used settings records. We might do that sort of stuff, but so far we've made a real conscious decision to avoid accessing any org data, and we're happy with that. Our customers are happy too. Cool. Well, if you guys have any other questions, we'll send out an email after the webinar with a link to the recording. Chad and Jeremy have given their Twitter handles, and I'm happy to take comments and questions about what they do and how they work, and likewise with us. So feel free to get us on Twitter or email us, team@gearset.com. And yeah, thanks very much for attending, guys.
Thanks all.
for having us.
Cheers.